Hey everybody, my name's Jeff. I'm here with the Embroidery Nerd, and today we will be going over Pulse DG16 Composer. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the software and we will take a look. Now, to open the software, I've got my cursor highlighted here. We're going to double click on this to get it started in Composer. And we're going to have this DG by Pulse pop up that's going to show us what's going on and how we can access it. So once the software opens, we're going to be on the start page. Now on the start page, it's going to generally give you a tip or a hint here that it loads from the Pulse website, as well as it's going to have down here, and it's pretty small. Let me see if I can magnify it just a little bit, and that might be too much, but down here you can see we've got the new file option, the open file option. We've got some recent files that we've worked on down here, but we have the open file and new file down here on the start page. Now this big area in the center is generally going to be our workspace when we're working. On the right side we have our properties, so when we did actually get into digitizing something, we're going to have our properties listed here, like our underlays, our densities. That's where that's all going to be. Off to the right, we have a couple of pop-out menus that are going to be some sequence view, elements view, stitch list, thread chart, so if we want to change some of the thread colors. But we'll get all into that a little bit later, and we'll go through it just a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we've got up here. So we have our toolbars. We've got our file menu, which is going to be our file. This is where we can create a new file. We can open a file, close a file. We can open from. You can open from Dropbox or Cloud if you get that set up. Your print set up, your machine connection. So if you're running a Tajima machine, you can have this connection set up if you have the license for it. Our embroidery disk. So when we're ready to write the design out to a specific file type, we can do that there. And then of course exit. Now under our view button here, we have our toolbars and docking windows, so you can see this is pretty much everything that we have. I've got everything here checked except our sequence view, elements view, stitch list, and thread chart. And as you can see, those are nested down over here. So once they become active, they should be checked, but I'm not going to pin those at this time. We have our statistics bar. Not really going to use that very much. We have our application look, so you can actually change it to look a little bit more like Microsoft Office 2013 or 2016. I generally leave this as default. You can change it if you want, but I would just leave it as default. So we have our managing tab, which is up here where it says manage, and we have our processing tab, which is right there. We'll go ahead and let those be shown. We can go to full screen if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that now. And we can have our windows. So right here, if we have, and I'm going to do it right now just for show, I can create a new design, and now you can see we have two tabs here, or two windows. So if I go to Windows, and now you can see which one we're looking at, and I can switch between the two windows there, or I can just click on the tab here. So that's what we have available there. Now let's go to our Manage tab. Now this is going to be our Applique Fabrics if we're going to do one. Our font categories are fonts, so we'll just click on an Applique Fabric, and you can see that we have some. It kind of gives a 3D render to your applique projects. We have our font categories, so we have name, block, script. So those are the font categories that we have. I don't have any set up right now, so we'll go ahead and close that out. We have our font selection. So these are all the fonts that we have available to us in the system, and it tells you what keyboard characters we have. So when we actually get into the keyboard lettering section of Pulse Composer, we'll be going into that a little bit more in detail on how to use that. So we also have our styles. So the styles are actually pretty interesting. This is here to help you. So as you can see, we've got baby blankets, and the thing here on the right that it's showing us are the different kind of formulas that it uses. So it's going to add 0.3 millimeters of absolute pull compensation. It's going to set your densities at 0.4. It's going to change your cross stitch to 0.3. Overlap lines. So these are the things that it's going to apply, and it changes based off of the item that you're doing. So like for a dog collar, it's going to add these, and these kind of give us a starting point of where we need to be so that we can move forward with the digitizing. I don't typically use this, but if I want to do something where if I know I'm going to go on a towel, I can click on that and I can use my the values that are set in here, and it kind of sets them up for me. We can also create them, import them, export them. So that is something also to look at. We have our tension control table. Now, I believe that this is for if you have a Tajima, you can set kind of and you have the auto tension, you can set your auto tensions a little bit and go from there. So it's not something that I've used before, and so I'm not overly familiar with it, but it's something I'll be learning more about as well. But all of these things we're going to go over a little bit later and more in depth. We're just kind of trying to get the basic idea of where things are at in the software so that we can move forward. We have our thread palettes. So these are the different manufacturers of thread. I've got the Madeira Fire Resistance. We've got the Poly Neon 75, Poly Neon 40. And then we've got the image there, and we've got the thread code there. So when we go and set up, we can pick the actual thread color that we want to use from the thread chart, and then that'll show on our run sheet when we print that out. And we'll talk about that more later as well. We've gone through everything there. So we have our thread palettes, and we did our thread charts. If not, I'm just going to double click, and it's pretty much the same thing. The thread palettes are what's going to be across the bottom. And so it's going to be a default of X amount, that it's going to put across the bottom in a new design. So right now we're using Poly Neon. We've got 18 needles here, and I'm just going to bring that up so we can zoom in. And you can see down here across the bottom, we have our little tabs, and those are going to be our needles. So those represent needles, and then the thread color on there, or the color of it would indicate the thread color that is on that needle. And we'll turn off the magnifying glass. It's a little distracting. It helps when you need to zoom in on something. It's distracting when you don't need to see it. So that's basically what sets that thread palette down there on the bottom. Now let's go into our tools. So this is a little bit more of things that you're gonna need. So we have our calibrate screen. Now it's really important when you first install your software, especially if you have a non-standard monitor size, is we need to do a screen calibration. So what this is going to do is it's going to make 1 inch on your screen actually display an inch. So if you open up your software and your grid lines are kind of crazy and everything looks wider than it is taller, or taller than it is wider, you need to run your screen calibration. And to do that, you're going to go under Tools and Calibrate Screen. And you can say, it says measure the dimensions of the above image with a ruler and enter the measured values below. So you're going to measure this, the height and the width, and you're going to enter those in there. And when you hit OK, it's going to adjust things on your screen so that it matches the actual measurements of your screen, so that you're able to actually focus and have things the correct measurement. So your calibrate your screen is very important. Your update security device, that's if you're going to be updating your dongle. You'll get an update file. You'll be able to enter the update file, load it up, and then you're able to update your pulse. So this would be like if you were going from version, let's say 15 to 16, or if you went up a level, you would do that there. Now these here, your machine settings, filters, machines, and spool settings. That's going to be if you're going to have a Tajima machine and you're going to have, this is where you're going to set it up, your filter, your filter, and your spooler settings. So that's for when you're sending a design to the machine. We have our restore default workspace. So if you ever make a change and you're not really sure what happened, you want to restore it to default, you can click on that and it'll tell you to restart the software, which you'll just close it and open it back up, and it'll reset where things are laying for you. We have our customized tools. So these are the different tools that we have here, and you can customize where they sit. You can add a toolbar if you want to, so I can add the menu bar. We have our keyboard. Now this is really nice. So these are your keyboard shortcuts. So if we go to like exit, Alt F4, file close, file open, new file, you can see our keyboard shortcuts are showing up there. And this is within the file category. So if we go into the all commands and you start looking through here, and I wish I could pull that wider, but I don't seem to be able to do that right now. But if you're looking through here and you go, oh, insert thread, insert tension, insert edit kernings, you can assign a keyboard shortcut to that. So the move to top, move to bottom from edit, I could say I want it to be Shift D, right? And then I can assign. And it tells me that right now it's not assigned to anything. So I'm able to assign that, my keyboard shortcuts. If I don't have one, I can assign one to it. And that's really, really nice to be able to set your keyboard shortcuts to what you want it to be. In here under menu, it's a default menu. I just leave that the way it is. I don't really change a lot of this stuff. The menu animations, again, I leave to default, and laser field I also leave to default. So these are some of the user settings, and we'll end up going through that. Sorry, these are the customized tools, and we'll go through that, and then we have our user settings, which we'll go through a lot more in depth to show you kind of the layout of stuff as well. So next up, we're going to go to our librarian. So our librarian is the way that we're going to be able to look up designs that we've done, grouping them. You can save designs, search designs, import a database, embroidery files. You can rebuild icons, switch to remote. So if we go into the open design, it's going to open the design database, and the database is going to be where it kind of indexes your files. So if you're like moving from one computer to another, you might have different locations of that stuff, and you want to be able to access it. So we're not going to go a ton into this because we'll consider that more advanced feature, and we'll go through it later. Next up, we have our processing. So with this, it's actually, you can do the quotation estimate wizard, where you're going to have a save file to go through the quotation, and you can run through a price. It'll help you kind of estimate a job for you based off of the design that you choose. So that's something that we're going to be going further in depth in a later video. But again, we're just trying to make you a little bit familiar with the menus and icons and stuff going here. So now we have build images. This is going to be where we input our designs we want to output the images to. So if we want to like bulk generate images for our designs for like a catalog or something, we can do a mass export of those. And then of course we have our help. So our help is going to be where we're going to go if we have questions. We have our contents, we have an index, favorites, and we can enumerate through the help menus there. We have about, this is going to tell us, and it's really, really small, but it's going to tell us kind of the licensing agreement. It's going to tell us what version of Pulse we're running. And so if you do end up having a problem, you can go there and you can say, hey, I'm having this issue, and this is the version of Pulse I'm having. And that'll help you get an answer a lot quicker when people know what you have. We have our fills, and this is our fill help. So this is if we're going to be doing a fill, stitch, and this is just something that we can get, what are the fill patterns, the help that we can go through. And remember, if you ever get stuck in any of this, the help menu is going to be your best friend. So you can always go to your help menu and go there. All right, that'll conclude this video. And next we will be going through and taking a look at these icons here, talking about what they do, showing some examples, and moving through the software. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them below in the comment section. You can also join the Embroidery Nerd group on Facebook or the Embroidery Nerd Discord. You can find all of this information at links.theembroiderynerd.com.